All right, how's it going? My name is Matt Lombardo. I am the manager of professional services IT here at Rippling. Been in the IT space for about 20 years now. Wide variety of background, everything from networking, email security, virtualization, MDM, you kind of name it, I've done it. Today, I am joined with Jeff Strauss from Docker. Jeff, great to have you. If you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Jeff. I'm the director of IT at Docker. I've been at Docker for about 2.5 years now. Prior to me starting at Docker, I was manager of the program management organization, the program management office at Snap. I was a manager in the Netflix technology services organization at Netflix. I worked at Twitter, Tinder, also have a history in the MDM space. I worked at Jamf for a couple of years. So I've been in the IT space for about 20 years now, and about just a little over half of that as a leader in the IT space.
Very cool, very cool. And today we're talking about culture, code, and compliance and how IT shapes and reflects company DNA. And we'll dive into some specifics, but we're going to kick it off. We're going to set the stage. Our culture IT feedback loop is where we're going to start. We're going to do a quick poll to the audience. Which of the best of these best describes your company's culture when it comes to IT? So what we're looking for is it IT is strategic partner from day one? Is your IT is reactive and mostly in the background? Is IT viewed as like a gatekeeper and a blocker? Or, not sure, it kind of varies by department. Jeff, for like follow up for you is, do you see any consistent cultural patterns across companies where IT is embraced as a partner and not seen as a blocker?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are some cultural patterns that differentiate partner versus blocker. I think the first thing is that there's going to be a mix of those things, right? There are some cases where IT will be a blocker, and it might be unavoidable. But really, I think it comes down to how the IT organization reflects broader cultural values. I'm also a very big fan of having a mission and vision
Mm.
statement and a set of values or tenets for an IT team that's separate but aligned with company values. Something I've done on every team I've ever led has been to work with the team to craft a mission and vision statement and a set of values that guide how we operate. And that engenders a level of communication, transparency, partnership. It signals a lot of things to the people that work with an IT organization when you live by and work by and communicate with those values. So I think that's one thing that goes a really long way, so that even if you are a blocker in some circumstances, people understand that you're coming from a place of goodwill, you're operating with integrity, and they understand the blocker. It sort of sets a different mindset than just saying, I can't work with IT. They always say no to things.
I think that's funny, and to be candid, like that's the first time I've actually ever heard of like an IT department having like a separate set of values that aligns with the greater purpose. And I never actually thought of it that way, but it makes complete sense. And I think that would definitely help, like when there is a blocker, seeing past that. So that's a really interesting take. Um, how do you see a company's culture influencing its approach to IT, like particularly in areas where like device management, security, onboarding, like are there cultural values that make IT practices easier or harder to implement?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. So I'm going to try not to get like pedantic and really in the weeds, but as a person who studies organizational culture, I think I think that company culture does make or break how teams function in sort of a cascade,
Hmm.
right? Culture comes from the top and it cascades down. And so if a company, for example, has values like transparency, collaboration, communication, if trust is an important factor, those things should filter throughout the teams, right? Company culture should permeate through teams. And if your teams are aligned with the company culture, if they're using the cultural language to speak about work, and they're really ingraining the company values in the way they operate, then things do become then it does help sort of like make or break how the team operates.
Hmm.
Um, so, for example, I think something that makes something that makes an IT team's operations a little bit easier during tough times. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say we have a new mandate where we need to deploy MDM
Mm.
on people's phones. We've all been there before.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's obviously going to be a lot of pushback, right? And I think how the company, like what the company culture is, can make that process a lot easier. Conversely, I think different company cultures, if you have like a company culture that doesn't value some of those things, and there are companies out there that don't,
Mm.
um, then it makes those things a little bit more challenging for an IT team. So I really do think culture permeates the company, or it should permeate the
Mm.
company, especially when culture becomes positive, and that does make things a lot easier, or it can make things harder.
I think your example there is like one of the best ones that I think, again, in IT we've all run against. Like that can either really kind of make friction or avoid it. I feel like it's like an MFA thing, right? When you tell people we're going to roll out MFA and you have to use your personal device to
Yep.
authenticate or something like that. There's a mixed feeling there. But to your point, like, how do you navigate that? Like, is it? I think it's you said a culture and being transparent, but like from like a rollout standpoint, would you also disagree? It's like giving the people maybe the why behind that. Like, is that what you've seen be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to give them the why behind it.
Right.
You always have to provide the rationale, right? I mean, there's something I learned. I used to be a high school teacher, and there's something that I learned, a technique that I took with me from high school that I apply all the time. And whenever a student was misbehaving, I would always ask them, "Why do you think that behavior is okay?"
Hmm.
Like, explain yourself, right? And that is the attitude that we have to take in our organization as well, like in our field as well. Why are we doing these things? Explain ourselves. And that's okay. If we get pushback, that's okay. That's a good thing, right? Like,
Right.
we shouldn't be afraid to have our ideas or our thoughts questioned. And, most of the time we'll have strong rationale for doing things. Sometimes the rationale isn't quite as strong as we think it is when we're developing it ourselves in our little world.
Hmm.
So it's okay to have those things questioned. I think that goes back to the company values. Like, what kind of company value do you have? Do you communicate fearlessly? Are you open to having your ideas challenged? Do you keep an open mind? One of the values that we have on my team is we accept and appreciate expertise no matter where it comes from, right?
Hmm.
That's one of our 10 core values. And that makes a difference to us. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you always have to explain the rationale. It's just good practice to do so.
Right. Oh my god, I love that. Cool. We're gonna jump into our next topic, which is like evolving the IT role from gatekeeper to strategic partner. What soft skills do you think today's IT professionals need most, and have those expectations changed?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the expectations have changed over the last decade. I mean, I think we remember, those of us that are old enough can remember, like, the classic caricature of the IT person who's like alone in their basement, like hunched over a computer, doesn't want to, like, if anybody remembers the old Jimmy Fallon SNL skits where he's the IT guy, right? Your
Yep.
company's computer guy. That's what people associate with. One of the greatest pieces of feedback that we get at Docker, I work on an amazing team at Docker. One of the best pieces of feedback that we get, and we've gotten it a few times since I've been there, is that we're the easiest IT team to work with, like, that people have ever worked with. Our boss, the CFO, gave me feedback that one of the guys on my team, Dan was working with our CFO to help him troubleshoot an issue. CFO's wife was in the room and overheard the conversation and said, "Why can't our company have an IT team like that?" And that's like the biggest compliment to get. And so I think, number one, yes, expectations have changed from the person that could just fix your issue. The thing that there's a quote that I love that's commonly attributed to Maya Angelou, which is, people won't remember what you say and people won't remember what you did. They'll remember how you make them feel. And
Hmm.
I think that's a really, really important concept, right? So soft skills, things like communication, transparency, understanding. I don't really use the word empathy that much.
Hmm.
I think empathy is best reserved for other things, but
Right.
the concept of understanding, right? Understanding the frustration, keeping calm under pressure is really important. Instilling a sense of confidence in the individual that you're working with, engendering and creating a quick rapport, being able to develop a quick rapport and engendering a sense of trust, you know, uh, expressing a sense of competence,
Mm.
integrity. Those things are really important soft skills to have. And I will say this, when I am hiring for my team, I don't really look for hard skills. I've said this before. Hard skills are like important. There's like a baseline of expectation that I want to have somebody joining my team to have. But really, the two qualities that I look for in a new team member are attitude and aptitude. They
Mm.
have to have the right attitude to like remain positive, be, if there's a challenge coming their way, not get discouraged, be resilient in the face of setbacks, and they have to have the aptitude to learn and apply new things in different situations. And though that combination of attitude and aptitude will lead to success.
I think you hit the nail on the head, like, because it's gonna happen. Like, setbacks are gonna happen, emergencies and fire drills are gonna happen, and if you're panicked, there is no way you can expect your end users to be confident in you. Going back to your original point, like when I roll something out, they're like, "Remember that time that you were freaking out, just as freaked out as I was." Like, that's not gonna go a long way.
Absolutely. And you mentioned such a good point too. I always, Docker, like our mascot is a whale, and we use all these ship, puns and ocean metaphors and things like that. And one thing I've been using for a long time is the term maelstrom, just like a rocky, dark, stormy sea.
Right.
And we've encountered a couple of P0 incidents since I've been at Docker, a couple of things where it's been pretty massive. And when I'm guiding my team through those, I join all of those calls. When I'm guiding my team through those, I always remind myself, just as much as I have to remind my team, that we're going through the maelstrom right now.
Mm.
We will come out onto calm, sunny waters on the other side of it. And when we look back, we'll have learned so much about that. So you just, forward thinking. And again, it's that attitude and aptitude. Don't get set back don't get, be resilient in the face of setbacks. Keep a positive attitude. Keep the ship moving forward, right? That's the key.
And I think to your point about like culture, and we're talking about going from like a gatekeeper to a strategic partner, like what does that say about you as a leader, that you're riding and withstanding the storm with your team, right? Like, talk about culture and building that partnership when they see you riding it with them, not just to your own team but to the wider org. They're like, all right, we have Jeff at the helm. Like, not to run on the ship metaphor, but like, that's got to be something that sits well with people.
Super important to me to be right there, especially in those moments. I'm not there with the team in all of the moments that they're like heads down working, which I wish I could be. But during those critical moments, I am absolutely 100% in there with them.
That's awesome. And I guess like kind of building off that, like how do you build that cross departmental relationship, like especially with your HR, legal? You mentioned you work under the CFO, engineering. Like, how do you build the relationship amongst, in IT we work with almost every department. How do you build and form that relationship?
So if you're a leader in IT, one of the best things you could do is just start talking to people. Like, set up meetings and introduce yourself to different parts of the organization and just start talking to people. One of the first things that I do is I set up cross-functional one-on-ones on a monthly basis. They're 30 minutes long. They're just check-ins. Hey, checking in. Got anything going on? Is there anything I can help you with? Here are some of the things that are going on in my world that might interest you. Just sort of like a quick catch-up once a month, and sometimes it doesn't last 30 minutes. Sometimes it's, 5-10 minutes just to say, hey, catch up, get a couple minutes of FaceTime. Those things are really important. So I would start there, right? That's how you start to develop those relationships. Maintaining a high quality relationship takes effort, right? There's effort, but that's part of what it means to be a leader, right? That's part of a leader's job, is to create, maintain, and develop those relationships around the company. If you're an IC on a team, really, hopefully your leaders are empowering you to execute autonomously, right? So I don't want to like dive into all of the things about what I think autonomy means, because I have my own thing about autonomy. But how I lead my team is I let my team know that they are not only capable, but they're empowered to go out and have relationships on their own, right? You don't have to come to me to talk to that manager over there to then put you in touch with someone over there. Just talk to people. You can
Right.
talk to the manager, talk to a C-level executive over there. Like, don't worry about me getting involved. If you need me for support, you have it. If you're not comfortable introducing yourself or having a conversation, I am right there with you to help. But they are empowered to do that with not only the autonomy, so they are not only have like the capability to do it on their own, but with the authority to do it as well. And I think that's a missing piece that a lot of people don't provide. My team has the authority to make those calls because we're all aligned. We have a shared consciousness on our team. Another thing that my job is as a leader is to create a shared consciousness on the team. So we all know what our mission is. We all know what we're driving towards. We all know where we're going. And everybody is empowered and authorized to execute as they see fit. And we all have good judgment. We all know, like, when do we need to escalate? When do we need to bring in others for support? Things like that.
I think it ties back to like what you were saying about like the traditional IT person too, right? Like usually like they're hiding in a server room. They don't the less FaceTime the better. And like what you're talking about, how you build your IT team and how you build cross departmental relationships. Like if you're rolling out a new onboarding flow or something that you know is going to cause overlap with HR, like as an IT admin, whether you're an IC or the manager, going out and talking to these people is probably the best thing you could do to make an onboarding experience for like a new employee the best, because you two are aligned. It's not like it wasn't discussed on what that process should be, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. That
Yeah,
makes
and
sense.
it's also a little bit more than it's also like when you have a relationship with somebody, there is there is grace that is provided to you when you have a relationship. Relationships are so important. If you don't have a good relationship, this is why one of my most important factors in my leadership philosophy is maintaining strong relationships with our vendors, right? Because it not only is there a strategic imperative to do that, but when you have a good relationship, people provide you grace. When
Mm.
you screw up, people are willing to say, "Oh, hey, I totally get it." But if they don't know you or if they have a bad impression of you, that's real hard to turn around. It's
Yeah.
real hard to get that grace.
Yeah, it's always harder to get that forgiveness if you don't have that relationship
Yep.
completely. I think I probably learned that early in my IT career
Yeah.
by not doing what you were suggesting, which is building relationships, right? Huddling down in a server room and not knowing who the who's are.
Yeah.
That's pretty empowering, though. I think that makes a ton of sense. We're going to jump into our next topic, which is like process policies and the power of right tools. We're going to do a poll to the audience. What's the biggest barrier to maturing your internal IT policies in your work? Is it the lack of automation and tools, misalignment with business teams, culture of control or low trust, low awareness of buy-in from leadership? And Jeff, like when you walk into a new org, you mentioned you worked at several different, well-known companies. What's your diagnostic test for whether an IT policy is working or is it just there for show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the primary thing is, does this policy produce an outcome that is meaningful, right? Like, if a policy is just there because somebody wants to write a policy down and it's for no reason, then it doesn't make any sense. You're just creating undue burden on everybody who has to follow or promote that policy, like uphold that policy. So the first thing I'll always do, and this is an ongoing exercise, right? We do this all the time. It should be an ongoing exercise. Is let's revisit all the policies that we have. Are they doing the things that we want them to be doing? Are they resulting in the outcomes we expect? And if people are just doing things because it's the way that it's always been done, and it's no longer meaningful, this is a problem. That's a just for show. There
Mm.
are also a lot of other policies that are just for show, but they sound good, or that they're a metric that we have to have. But the old phrase "measure what matters," right? The John Doerr phrase, I think it was his, "measure what matters." That's really what does it matter, and
Mm.
that's the diagnostic test for me. And there's strata within there, right? What are more important than others? But ultimately, what it comes down to is this policy resulting in a meaningful outcome. And that's it.
And it's funny, like that approach and that philosophy really applies to whether it's a policy that is like, hey, we have MSA enforced, to like, I always think of this when I'm talking to customers as like MDM policies, right? I'm like, if you walk into existing policies that are set up in your MDM environment, you don't necessarily know what they are. The first thing you need to do is get the lay of the land, right? Because to your point, I don't know, maybe they were just set up because someone for job ago thought that made sense, right? But you might review it and say, that's like a legacy policy. There's a better way to do it. And, maybe it was just there for show versus this is another way we can kind of do that. That makes more sense. It's that review, right? It's is it for show? Is it just there? And what's it accomplishing? What's its output?
Yeah. And businesses are, living organisms. They change, they grow, they shrink, God forbid. A lot of things happen. Policies policies are not dynamic. Once a policy is set, that is a static policy. So it is important to revisit those policies so that they make a meaningful impact, in like vis-a-vis the business.
Right. Absolutely. Um, and like, I guess just to build off that, like, what separates immature versus mature internal IT policies and processes? Like, how do you distinguish between when you're walking in, like, these are mature versus immature, maybe internal IT teams, newer? How do you kind of distinguish between that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that really depends on the business, like the business that a policy is in, right? If there's if a smaller company, one or two person IT team, some policies that a larger organization could consider rudimentary might be perfect for that size of organization. Something that works at a 200 person company or a 30 person company may not be an effective metric, maybe quote unquote an immature policy or metric at Google, for example, where they're employing hundreds of thousands of people. So I really think it makes that makes a difference. But ultimately, at the core of it is, does it produce or support a meaningful outcome that is important to the business?
Right.
Right. That's what it comes down to. And there's nuance in there, right? Like we have policies that help us maintain compliance. We're audited by third parties. We have attestations and certifications, etc., as many places do. There are some policies that are in place to help us maintain that, environment, but we also have to balance that with how do we further our mission, our team's mission of providing world-class expertise, access, systems, and capabilities to our users that help them do the best work of their careers. So we have to like balance that. And if a policy is able to balance that well, I would consider that a mature policy.
It's like not it's the one size fit all. Like that may not be the case. Is it, to your point, which I think is the biggest thing, is what do you need to produce those outputs?
Totally.
That's what's good for you. It doesn't mean it's immature. It doesn't mean it's
Totally.
mature. It's just like that's what is there for you guys, and that makes sense for your organization.
And different industries have different I'm not in banking, thankfully. But, you know what I mean? Like having air gapped machines that are super difficult to do things on, that's a policy that would not work at Docker, for example, right? So it really, I think it just, there's so many variables.
Right. Totally. How can the right IT tools actually empower more human trust-based policies? So, for example, like automating provisioning might enable more flexible work from home setups. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is huge, right? I mean, in line with our mission at Docker, and really the similar mission on any IT team I've ever led is empowering the user. Um, you know, all of the tooling that we either integrate if it's a third party, or we write on our own if we're writing our own integrations or our own tools, it always has to further the empowerment of the user. And when I talk about our our values and our tenets on our team and our mission, that is a language that we use when we're discussing how we're going to integrate this thing, right?
Mm.
Does it further our mission? Does it enhance our mission? Or and if on its face it doesn't, how will we use it to empower or to further our mission? So, I think really any well thought out integration of an IT tool like Rippling's orchestration capabilities,
Mm.
like bringing in like all of these different disparate systems, for example, if you're connecting an HRIS, if you're connecting your procurement tool, if you're connecting some IT tool over here, if you're connecting some legal tool over here, and you have an orchestration layer over everything that just seamlessly make things work, that is a great user experience. Say somebody's being onboarded, they're like, hey, I need to request a company credit card,
Mm.
right? A tool like Rippling's orchestration can make that a really seamless process. And that is a great user experience. And that's the kind of thing that leads to feedback like yours is the best IT team I've ever worked with. So it really, that's the sort of goal to have in mind. It takes thoughtful planning and preparation, but the right IT tools can make or break that.
Oh, that's amazing. As we come to wrapping it up, my favorite part, can you share a moment where your IT choices shaped company culture or vice versa?
Yeah. So I think one of the I'll give I think I'll give two examples. They're brief though. One is, as I mentioned, we're fully remote,
Mm.
right? And so when I first got here, there was the company was a little bit smaller than we are now, but not by much. And um, and the primary method of intake for help requests was an email. Somebody sent an email to an email address, or they went into Jira. We use Jira, and they submitted a ticket in Jira, right? Well, as I was, one of the first things I did was I changed that methodology up and I created a Slack channel and encouraged everybody to come into the Slack channel. You need help? Go to the Slack channel. And we're monitoring the Slack channel.
Mm.
And in the beginning, it was a shift in methodology. So it was like a little bit harder for me and the one other person on our IT team. And we manage a couple of contractors as well. At the time, I believe it was 2 contractors. Now it's 3 contractors. And so it was a little bit of a shift there because all of a sudden we have to be watching Slack, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to be on Slack, right? But here's the thing. We're fully remote, right?
Mm.
What's the office? Where is everybody talking to each other? Where is everybody doing their real-time work? It's in Slack.
Right.
Like, we should be in Slack too. So that's one of the major shifts that I made when I first got to Docker in 2022 was create a channel for people to come in when they need help. They get help in real time. They don't have to
Wow.
wait for like a ticket to come in and blah, blah, blah. So it took a little bit of working through some, challenges to that model, but it ended up being extremely successful. We still do it to this very day. Slack, we take in over 98% of our tickets via Slack.
Wow.
And so that was one thing and really, again, it's how do we have that relationship with our customer, right? Like we're not some faceless entity that is in the back somewhere and you have to submit a Jira ticket. And then Lord knows when you're going to hear back. Oh, am I going to get an update today? Oh, I'm so lucky. I got an update today. No, like we'll talk to you in real time. We're here for you. The level up of that was I encourage my team when we're troubleshooting, if it takes more than 1 or 2 Slack messages to figure something out, get on a Zoom. Like
Mm.
it'll resolve things so much faster. You get to talk to people face to face. You're not missing things in messages. You're not misinterpreting things. And you're again, people won't remember what you said or did. They'll remember how you make them feel. Get on a call with them. Let them see your face or at least hear your voice and help them through their issue, right? And it doesn't have to happen right then and there. Like people are if you build that relationship with people, then you could say, "Hey, you know what? I want to get on a Zoom with you to help resolve this. I don't have time right now. I'm going to schedule 15 minutes with you at our first available slot in our calendar and we'll work it out." And people are like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you." They're grateful for that. You know what I mean? So those two things were pretty big shifts in how we operated that result in very, very positive feedback to our team.
I think going on your first, like, the Slack thing is huge. I mean, people always want to talk to people. The ticket. I mean, how many times in your IT career have you said, I'm not submitting a ticket? Like, I remember the first time someone of authority told me that, and I'm like, I don't know what to say back to that, right? And then like your point about the call, like I find myself still like when I have sometimes like ICs, like letting them know that that's a very important thing that could make or break whether you're internal IT with an end user or a customer. That goes such a long way, and I think we talked about it throughout the call, is like building confidence, building trust, morale, understanding who you are. You're not a shadow. That is the difference. And I think, to your point, certain people have to learn that because they don't traditionally know that. Like, hey, listen, there's whether it's a Slack message or an email, this has gone on way too long. You could hear the temperament through the writing. You need to reach out and extend the olive branch, which is that call.
Absolutely. And here's my general rule of thumb, right? Like I mentioned before, the heuristic is if you're more than a couple of Slack messages, you schedule a Zoom. If it's an executive and you don't fix their issue in one message, you schedule a Zoom. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You get on the phone.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it does make a huge difference. So, yeah, like really what it comes down to is like, how are we front and center with our users to develop a trusting relationship where people want to be like, I want to work with your team. We have people, I just had a meeting this morning. My day started at 7 a.m. today. I had my first meeting with a couple folks. One of the members on my team is in the UK, and she's amazing. And people are like request her help on stuff like for projects. And that happens with everybody on my team, right? Everybody has been like, oh, can I work with Sean? Can I work with Dan? Can I work with Fiona on this? I got Nikki's help with something. Can she work with me on this event? It happens all the time, and it only happens that way because of the culture we have built on the team and the sort of the processes that we have in place that are 100% focused on the user experience.
Jeff, closing out, if you had to give one piece of advice to IT teams trying to evolve from a reactive strategic, what would it be?
Yeah, so to like evolve from reactive to strategic, I would say a couple of things. I would say one, having the right tooling in place that can help you be proactive / strategic is really important. And I say that with sort of an overarching theme. This has been the word for like the last decade in IT has been automation, right? Like if a tool can help you automate, even if it's like no code or low code, an orchestration tool where you're like clicking tiles in a thing and you're creating workflows and integrating tools, great. Like if that helps you reduce your burden, like your day-to-day sort of firefighting burden, so that you can focus on processes and policies and strategies to drive the business forward and sort of offload those things or automate those things, that's one huge thing. So automation. From a cultural perspective, if you're a small team, or even if you're a big team, one of the most important tenets of my leadership philosophy is creating a learning culture on my team and more broadly at the business. But on my team specifically, creating a learning culture. What I mean by that is I always want my team exploring new technologies, learning new things that help to upskill them so that they can do more with less burden, right? Less overhead. We're a small team and we have a big remit and we manage a lot of things for a lot of people. And one of the things that I avoid doing on my team is piling up more and more stuff. Here's another system you have to learn. Here's another thing you have to do. Here's this. Like, I want to reduce that burden while simultaneously expanding capabilities. And so the way to do that is by, engendering a culture of continual learning, continual improvement. Where can we make adjustments to existing things? Let's not pile up things, but where can we make things more efficient? Where can we automate? And what types of things, like what types of measurements matter. And let's focus on those. And if a measurement doesn't work, or if a policy doesn't work, or it doesn't matter, it goes away. Like there's no point in keeping, like a carcass around of something. Like get it out of here, and let's focus on the living, breathing, important things.
Fostering growth for IT careers and personal growth, I think, is amazing. I think that, how many times, I can personally say, like, I've been hired for a very specific niche role, and it's like, you're going to do this, right? Like this IT thing. And then it's like, but I'd love to learn. I actually remember this. Like when I graduated college, I went specifically for Cisco networking. And when I got the job at a school district, they're like, we don't do Cisco here. But it was really just like, they didn't want me to be the Cisco guy. Meanwhile, when I worked myself up, 15 years later, the whole backbone was 4510 chassis, catalyst switches, and it's like, no one fostered that. But it wasn't until I had someone there that actually, to your point and how you run your team, that encouraged me. Hey, I know you're not doing this today, but like, let's if I can have you change a switch port to a different VLAN, it empowers me. It reduces overhead. It's quicker. It's faster. It's a win-win.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I remember logging into those Cisco iOS command line interfaces way back in the day. I haven't done that in a long time. But I totally agree with you. There's so much benefit in having a learning culture. I think one of the things I tell my team two things when it comes to training. I say, you can take any training you want. Any training you want. If it has even 10% applicability to our team, take the training. I'm totally fine with that. There's a lot of benefits in doing even that. The other thing I tell my team is, if we're not using a technology or a tool or a process or something, a workflow, a pipeline now, and you want to learn it, let's do it. Like, let's see where we can fit it in and see what we can do, right? And I tell my team this, like, go on, it can be a dangerous thing to do this if you don't have like if your team isn't a well operating team. But I tell my team, in terms of like growth, I have weekly one-on-ones. I'll talk about the culture for 1 second. I want to
absolutely.
Time on this. But I have weekly one-on-ones with my team, and I have regular career conversations with my team. And the question I ask is, are you doing the work that you enjoy doing? Are you still doing that work? And are you doing the work that you think will further your career to the next place you want to go? So I ask those questions regularly during my one-on-ones. Not every one-on-one, but like a couple times a month at least. I'll ask, are you still doing the work you enjoy doing? And do you feel like that work is furthering your career? I want to hear yes to both of those. If I hear no to one, and this goes into a whole thing about psychological safety, making sure my team knows that it's okay to tell me, no, I'm not working on something I don't want to work on. But if the answer is no to any one of those, then say, okay, let's fix that. And I've told members of my team before, like, go on LinkedIn, find the next role you want to take your career to, look at the job descriptions on LinkedIn for those roles, pick out some of those technologies that are being used in the industry today, and let's see how we can either get you training for those, but even more importantly, let's see if we can utilize those here, because your training without application is going to be worthless in 2 months. You're going to forget about it in 2 months. So let's figure out how we can leverage something like that internally, and then let's get you trained on it so you can at least have some experience. And so, it's a win-win when you consider things like that.
Right. Jeff, amazing conversation. The connection between IT culture, I'm blown. So grateful to have you. Thank you so much. We look forward to having additional conversations with you.
Hey, this was really, really fun. I really appreciate the conversation, Matt. And thank you so much. It's great. I love talking about this stuff. I'm willing to spend all day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.